I have another Christmas in July project for you today. We are going to create some super cute stand-up Christmas trees. These are roughly 5 inches tall. The ones we're going to create today are going to be 10 inches tall. We are going to go over how to cut chipboard. We're going to do our own print of some digital papers, and then we're going to cut off of those digital papers. And stick around until the end if you want to know where you can grab the files to create all of these for yourself. Before we jump in, I want to say, hey, I'm Christy here at Crafty Christy's Creations, and I'm here to help you master your silhouette. So let's jump into Silhouette Studio and get started. I have to put a little warning out there. We are kind of breaking the rules today. So if you're a beginner, just keep in mind that some of the things we're doing are not your traditional how you would do print and cut projects, but let's get going. Okay, the first thing that we are going to do is create our own digital papers. I did not have any cardstock with a print that I liked, so we're just going to print our own. And I've already got my screen set up here for an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper because that's what my printer can take. What I'm going to do is fill in a box. Whoops, that's cheating. I think I'm going to have to. So let's give this box a different color. And then I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to make this box. I've got my aspect ratio unlocked. We're going to go ahead and just make this box the same size as our sheet of paper. So it's 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches tall. We'll hit enter, and then I can hit this center to page, and then it's all lined up centered. So you already kind of got a preview of what I did. I'm going to come over to the fill style, and we're going to come all the way over to fill pattern. Now, I do believe you have to have business edition to add your own fill patterns, but I've got a video and I will link that below on how you can do that. But I've got this beautiful music note fill pattern that I've got here. So I have that box selected, and then I just selected the pattern that I want. So I've got a couple different ones here, but I like this kind of yellowy one. It just makes it look a little older. I like that look. Now, here's the fun part. I'm cutting out these pieces in large scale. So let me show you. This is the larger version of kind of what we're going to be doing. We're going to make ours are going to be solid color, but we're going to do it out of this larger size. And to get this to fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, it has to be tilted. So the question is, how do I know the angle that this is going to tilt so that way my words read correctly? Let me show you. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, and I have the SVG files for the tree that we're going to do. We're just doing the solid one, and I've got them pulled in already. So I'm just going to grab one, and I'm going to do my keyboard shortcut, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste. And I'm going to go ahead and just rotate this how I need it so it's going to fit on here where I want it. And that right there looks pretty darn good. So now I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to select my pattern. And then you have this, you can pan the pattern, and then you can also change the angle of it. So right now I'm going to change that angle because I want it to be angled so that way I can read it while I'm also kind of reading, so it'll read straight across. That's what I'm trying to say. Goodness. So I'm going to do this angle at 15 degrees for my background. And then when I was saying with the pan, you can click this and you get this little white arrow and then you can scroll through and put that wherever you want it. And I'm gonna try to pull this a little closer to the edge so that some of those words are lined up a little bit better where I want them. And I think I like the way that looks right there. So we've got everything set up. I'm gonna go ahead and move this guy back off my screen, and we're gonna print this. So I'm gonna come up to my printer, and I'm just gonna print. Now, I had to come over to print and then preferences, and then I did borderless printing, so that way it'll print all the way to the edge. So I'm just gonna hit OK. And then all I have to do is hit print, and we'll do this. So I'm going to print you need a total of 4 copies of this paper, but we're gonna print 2 copies of this paper going this direction, and then we'll do 2 copies going the other direction, and I'll explain more as we go. So I'm just gonna hit print, and then I'll be back when this is done printing. Okay, I'm done printing. Here is my printed copy. So you can see it printed nice and how I want it. And I just want to give you an idea of what this is going to look like. I've already cut one out. So then this is you can see how our text is reading up and down pretty well. And this is why we went ahead and turned it to that angle, because we're cutting on that angle. Otherwise, when we would cut this out, the text would be angled, and that's not what we want it to look like. So we've got 2 sheets with it tilted at that 15 degrees. And we're gonna go ahead and just get this one cut out. So you will cut this out twice. So I'm gonna pull my tree over, and I'm going to just get this lined up where I want it. Now, because of the way that this pattern was made, you can see that there is this fine light white line around this. So I'm being mindful of where that is, and I'm trying to get my tree in that area so that it's all the color that I want. And that's probably as good as it's gonna get. So I like that. So let's get this set up for cutting. I'm gonna come over to my Send panel. I'm using the Cameo 5, and I printed that on regular 80-pound cardstock. And then I've got my settings here how I want it. So we're gonna use the electrostatic mat. Oop, and I didn't change the mat. We're gonna come over here to the cutting mat, electrostatic mat, that's better. And then we can leave all of those settings alone. And then the other thing I look at is, you can see I'm cut off that edge a little bit. So I am gonna scoot this guy over ever so slightly to make sure it all fits on there. Nope. So I leave my cut borders on so I can see, and now I'm off at the top. Okay, it's easier if you come back to design. There's my cut border. And I'm just gonna sneak that on down here. This one little edge is gonna be kind of off of that color variation, but that should all be in there now. And we're all in, that looks good. Okay, so let's get everything set up on our machine. Okay, we're gonna use the electrostatic mat. I've already got it turned on. And I'm just gonna line up my pretty cardstock here. And that looks really good. I'm gonna go ahead and load this on in. And then we can go ahead and just hit send, and that'll get cutting. So I'm just gonna hit send. Okay, so while that is cutting, we are gonna come back to design here, and we're gonna mirror a copy of this. So I'm gonna take my Christmas tree, And I'm gonna go ahead and come over to the replicate, and I'm going to mirror my design. So I'm going to get rid of my original. And now I'm gonna take my design, and now this time it's gonna go this direction. So what we need to do now is take our background. We're gonna come back to our fill pattern. And that fill pattern is still selected there. But what we're gonna do this time is we're going to turn it to -15. And then we can go ahead and just make sure that our Christmas tree is gonna fit on there really well, and that looks good. And now we're gonna go ahead and print 2 copies of that background going this direction. So I'm gonna move that Christmas tree off of there. And then once again, I'm gonna come over to print. Here's my print preview. We're doing borderless printing. And this time I'm gonna do 2 copies of it going that direction, and I'm gonna hit print. And then while that's printing, let's check out our cut. And boy, did that not go well. Let's go ahead and unload and see what happened. Well, it looks like maybe just that piece got stuck. Fingers crossed. Yeah, everything looks like it peeled off okay, and my tree looks beautiful. So, whew, that worked out okay. Okay, so I've got this one here, and we're working on printing another copy to do it in the other direction. So while that's printing, let's talk about chipboard. Why am I using chipboard? So the purpose of chipboard is it's going to make your projects a little bit more sturdy. When I'm using things like this foil, it kind of has a sturdier backing to it. It almost has a little bit of a cardboard backing. So this does not need it as much. But when I'm doing projects using this kind of material, so this is heat transfer vinyl that I put on the chipboard. And I will say, I don't recommend using, like, this is a glitter heat transfer vinyl. And this just didn't work great with the chipboard. It actually made it more flimsy. But I also did chipboard on this one, and then I used a foil HTV, and this one is super, super sturdy. So this is why we use the chipboard. It's gonna make things a lot more sturdy. So we are going to be using our regular sticky mat to cut out the chipboard because it's a thicker material. You're gonna need quite a bit of force and a deeper blade depth that it's just not ideal for using with your electrostatic mat. So the fun thing about this project is you're really gonna learn lots of different techniques all in one project. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get this set up here. So this is Silhouette brand chipboard, so it's 0.4 millimeters, so it's not very thick. There are thicker ones out there, but that is all set up and ready to go. We're gonna move back to what we were doing previously with our printed sheet. So I've got my second printed sheet here. You can see this is got my print going in the opposite direction. So I'm gonna go ahead and load this one on to my electrostatic mat. And then we can get this loaded in. Come back to Silhouette Studio here. And remember, this is what we just printed at that -15 degrees. So I'm gonna bring in that mirrored copy, And I'm gonna get that set up here and see if we can't get that in a good place. All right, let's see what that looks like. So looks like, oh, and you know what? This is what I forgot to do. This background layer, we're gonna hit ignore lines because we don't need to cut that out. We're only gonna cut out our Christmas tree shape. And it did yell at me that my lines were touching the cut lines. So that looks good there. Everything's loaded. We're gonna keep our settings the same, and then I can just go ahead and hit send. And then this will send to the cutting machine. So we'll let that get cut out. So while that's cutting, let's go ahead and get our other half of our design created. So we've already done the two top halves. So now we're gonna cut the bottom half. So I can move this one off of here. I'm gonna bring in the bottom, so I say the bottom half and the top half because the slit is on the bottom of this one. I'm gonna do the same thing, Control+C to copy. We'll bring that back over here, Control+V to paste. So we've got this half of the Christmas tree, and then we're gonna tilt that. And then we'll just make sure that that's within all of our borders. Now you'll see I didn't do as good when I printed this one. I've got that color variation on there. So if you hopefully have a better digital paper or pattern that you're using, you don't have to worry about that. But on this same angle, we're gonna get this one ready to send. Looks like I need to move this over just a smidge. Hopefully that will work. And then let's go back to our cutting machine. So that one's done cutting and it didn't cause us a problem. So we can go ahead and just unload. Sorry friends, my camera died, so I had to switch cameras here. So let me just recap where we're at. Off screen, I had cut out one copy already. So we have our two top copies with the slit at the top. These were cut at the 15-degree angle this direction. And then I just finished cutting the second copy of the 15-degree angle, of the negative 15-degree angle. So these are our two bottom copies with the slits at the bottom, and then they were cut at the negative 15-degree angle on that design print. Okay, so we have all of our pieces done here. So I cut two copies because when you see these little guys sitting here, you do tend, depending on how, if you stood them up just like this, and you only saw the opening area, then you would only see one side. But I like to vary them so that like one piece is sitting next to me, maybe turn them a little ways. So I like to cover both sides of the chipboard so that way it's all one cohesive color. So that's why we did 4 copies here. So 2 copies of each. So that way we'll completely cover the chipboard. So let's move on to cutting out. We're gonna cut that exact same designs, but now we're gonna cut it on our 12 by 12 cardstock. So we can detach our electrostatic mat. So I'm just gonna hold down these buttons here on the side that releases it, and I can move that out of the way. I've got my first sheet of chipboard on here on my mat, and I like to just, for some extra protection, I like to come in with some painter's tape and just put a little bit down all 4 sides just to help secure this down. My mat is well loved and it is at baseline, not so sticky, which is perfect for using with cardstock. So when I use thicker material, I like to make sure it's good and secure, and a little tape can do that for us. So I tape down all 4 sides. We can go ahead and load this in. And my roller is barely on the edge here, so I'm just gonna lift this roller up and scoot it in just a smidge. And then, you know, if you want to adjust other rollers, you can, but that looks good. So let's go back to Silhouette Studio and look at what we need to do to cut that out. Okay, so here's where we left off. We're gonna come back to design. I'm gonna get rid of this background. I don't need it anymore, so I'm just gonna hit delete. Get rid of that. I'm gonna change my page layout. We're still using the electrostatic, nope, we're using our Cameo 12 by 12 mat, the sticky mat. And my media size is now also 12 by 12. And I need to turn off my print border. We don't need that. So we only have to cut the original 2 copies here. So see how I've got an up and a down, and then this is the other one that I need. So you only need 1 of each. So I'm just gonna delete that one to make it a little easier. And then we can pull this one on here. I don't think we can cut both at the same time. This is like 9 inches. So unfortunately, you're only going to get to cut one. But if you've grabbed the bundle and you've got the 10-inch and the 5-inch, you can certainly cut both pieces of the 5-inch right here next to one piece of the 10. So that is a little saving grace to get your good use out of all the material. So we're only going to cut one at a time here. We're going to come over to the sun panel, and we're going to grab this one called chipboard. And I did mine at a blade depth of 6, 2 passes. This is a pretty simple design, so I'm going to turn that speed up to 3 and then the force of 33. And that works really well, that I have found that's working well with the auto blade. For, again, this is the Silhouette brand I think it was 0.04 or 0.4 millimeters of thickness. So it's not very thick at all. So we've got that all set up. Everything's loaded. We're ready. We can go ahead and send. It gives you this little screen here as a reminder. And then it's going to send that to the Silhouette. And then it's just going to cut that out just like it would cut out anything else. So while that's cutting, let's get things ready for our next piece. So we can come back here to design. We can get that one moved off the screen, and then we can bring in this guy here. And I'm just gonna put it right here in that corner, come over to the send panel, and then we'll leave the settings the same, and then we'll just cut this one out. So that's all we need to do. This guy's almost done cutting. So we can get our other piece of chipboard ready here for when it's done. So it's doing 2 passes. So while it's still cutting, what we're gonna do with these guys is we will do 1 piece on each side of our chipboard just to strengthen it even more. Okay, it's all done cutting. We can go ahead and unload. And I see that somewhere around here, my cut got off on that second round, and those cut lines are not perfect. But let's see if we can't make it work anyways. So I'm just gonna peel off all of the tape here, and I'm just gonna do a little check. And I know that even though that cut might not be perfect, it's still gonna work. If we had to, you know, we can make it work. I'm not gonna worry about it. So I'm just gonna flip this over. Working with chipboard, you really wanna pull it away from your mat. And then we need to scrape off any debris. Anytime there's a set 2 passes or more, there's guaranteed to be some debris on your mat. So just scrape off any of that debris. We'll worry about finishing that one here in a minute. Let's go ahead and put our other piece of chipboard on here. And then we'll tape it down just the same as we did with that first piece. So this is a little more realistic of how I do my crafting, as I tend to, while one thing is cutting, I'm setting up another thing. Or if I have a lot of cutting to do, I will actually have both of my machines going. And I will say, when you're using both machines, you definitely have to pay a lot more attention to what's going where and make sure that you're cutting the right thing on the right machine. So this one is ready. Go ahead and load this in. Okay, that's all loaded in. Let's go to Silhouette Studio and then we can make sure that looks good so we can send it. Okay, so we already set up our second piece here. We're gonna keep those same settings, speed of 3, force of 33, 2 passes, blade of 6. You don't really need the line segment overcut. I'm gonna turn that off for this one. I think it works just fine, and really that is better for straight lines, so it's really only gonna make a difference right in this little slit here. Okay, everything looks good. We're gonna go ahead and send, and we're gonna send, and then we'll let that cut out. Okay, so while that one's gonna be cutting, we can go ahead and just see how this is gonna work. And I know because it didn't cut in the right place. So I don't know if it like hit some of the cords for my lights behind me that are behind the table, or what happened, why that cut was off, but only on one side. I have been cutting all day long and have not had any issues. I don't know if you remember last week, my Cameo 5 was in timeout because it would not read the Bluetooth. And I don't really know what that was about. I restarted my computer a couple times in the meantime, and then came back and turned the machine on and everything worked fine. So sometimes I think they just need a timeout. So I am gonna clean up this edge, because remember I just said that it kind of did a double cut and not quite on the same line. So I'm just gonna clean this edge up a bit. We want good sharp edges. You normally don't have to do this, but because for whatever reason that line didn't cut in the right place, got a little cleaning up to do. All right, that one looks like it worked just fine, so it must have bumped something to get out of alignment there, because that one looks perfect. So I'm just gonna trim off this extra. If it's a little bit shorter than what it needs to be for the cardstock, that's totally fine. The cardstock can span the small distance. That won't be a problem. And you know, you're not gonna see this chipboard. It's just gonna be under there. The hard part is gonna be getting this gap. So I think I can just cut. And this gap's not very large, as you've seen on the cardstock. You can't really tell, but I did create this on purpose. This gap is wide enough to fit that, to slide in that chipboard. So we'll get rid of these little, let's move that out of our way. I'm gonna leave that there for a minute, and we're gonna go ahead and just start getting this guy assembled. So I'm gonna take my one piece here. Okay, so did I cut those lines correctly? Okay, yep, that's gonna work just fine. So you can decide to put glue either on this or on your cardstock, whatever works well for you. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it on my chipboard. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. You just want to make sure you've got some close to the edge, and then around that opening. You don't want glue to spill into that opening. Or get it on your desk, because then you'll get it everywhere. So then we're just going to line this up. So normally I would start at the tip, but because those edges could potentially be compromised, I'm going to start at this bottom edge. And then sometimes I find it easier to just kind of hold things up, see how it looks. And I guess we're just going to have to do some trimming because we know that the cardstock is cut to the right size. It looks like we're going to have to trim up some more of that chipboard on this piece, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and just glue down this side as well. And actually this time I'm going to put my glue on here because again, we know that our cardstock piece is the correct piece, correct size, I should say. And then we can just go ahead and line this up. And then when you're happy with its placement, just go ahead and press it all down really well. Okay, that looks good. So I do have some trimming up to do, and then it did tell me that it was like cutting off the edge on the one side there, so that's what that's about. But I can now easily come through here and just trim off that extra line that was around my chipboard since it didn't cut the second pass in the same place as the first pass. All right, this piece is all trimmed up and looking better. Let's go ahead and unload this guy here. Bring in my little, and then I will just tape my tape to the edge of my table, and then I can reuse it on another project until it's not sticky anymore. So again, you just want to flip that mat over and just try to peel everything off the mat. You can see this tree cut off a lot better. That one cut perfectly like it was supposed to. Beautiful fine edges. Okay, so we will grab our other two pieces that have the slit in the bottom to match with our chipboard here. And we're just going to repeat that same process where we are gluing these onto our chipboard. So again, you can put the glue on the cardstock or you can put the glue on the chipboard, whatever you want to do. And then you just want to keep it away from that opening. Okay, and we'll just line this piece up nicely. So this time, because it did cut well, I am going to be conscious of lining it up right here at these bottom edges where that gap starts, and then nice and flush with the bottom. Again, you may want to just hold things up so you can move them around a little bit easier. And then once that bottom looks good, just go ahead and just keep moving on up. Make sure everything else looks good too. And then we will repeat the same process on the back. Okay, I've got the cardstock glued on both sides of my chipboard, and now the fun part, all we have to do is slide them together. So you take the slit on the bottom and then you're going to slide that through the slit in the top of the other piece. And then you may have to just train it to really go down that slit. And then sometimes I'll kind of take upward force on this one, downward force on this one to really just push them together to meet in the middle. But once you get it there, they're just going to stand up nice and tall for you. and they are all ready to go. And then all you have to do when you're ready to put them away, they will just be nice and flat to put away for storage. So what did you think? Aren't these the cutest? So in the bundle, you will get both sizes, the 5-inch and the 10-inch. Now the thing is, you cannot resize these because they are designed with that slit in there. That slit is made to be the correct width that you need for cardstock or really thin chipboard. So if you were to resize this to a different size than what's available, that slit will also get larger, and you'll just have too much of a gap and things will kind of fall apart. But to grab the bundle, you'll have the 2 different sizes in 4 different designs. Easier to show you with the small. So you've got the plain, you've got polka dots, we've got a plaid pattern, and then you also have the snowflakes, which again, do not use glitter HTV on the chipboard. It just makes it too flimsy. So glitter cardstock would work really nice on that chipboard. So I'll leave a link for this below, or you can use this QR code here to grab this bundle for yourself. Make sure that you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future Silhouette Studio tutorials. Next week, I will have one more Christmas in July video for you. Until then, go ahead and check out the videos over here. Watch those next, and I'll see you over there.